This is a $2,000 Fender American Pro 2 Jazzmaster, and this is my £150 Harley Benton that I spent roughly an extra £350 on, ending up with what I described many times as a custom shop killer for £500 all in. So time to put my money where my mouth is. Yes, this isn't a custom shop, but it's pretty much the best that Fender can offer you from their standard range. I've got a couple of different categories. We're obviously going to hear the two of them, and who knows? Maybe you'll want one of these Frankenstein weirdos, or you'll end up sticking with, you know, pretty much the best of what Fender can offer you. Let's get into it. So let's start with the most important aspect about guitars, and that is the looks. Because we don't even want to pick up a guitar and play it unless we think it looks good. Yes, they're both going for a Jazzmaster type thing. That's an official Jazzmaster, I suppose, but that's kind of where the similarities end. My Harley Benton has the benefit, or handicap I guess you could say, depending on how you want to look at it, that I did it all myself. I customized this, I refinished it myself, all to my own tastes. And you know what? A few months on, I'm still really happy with the results. Yes, there are things I would do differently, and yes, it's not perfect, but I still think it looks great. It's a bit of a 10-footer, I suppose. You know, you want to look at it from a distance and you think, that's a bloody nice guitar. Once you get up close, you can tell that an absolute amateur did it, you know, for £15 in his back garden, but still, it looks good. There's also a serious mixed match of coloured plastics on here. I think we've got 4 or 5 different colours of plastics. That's just because I ran out of money. Maybe it adds to the vibe, maybe it looks ridiculous. I haven't quite decided yet. Fender, on the other hand, is the other end of the spectrum. It has this gorgeous, pristine, sparkle surf green finish, Mystic surf green officially. and it is a beautiful, beautiful colour. And done really nicely as well. This is probably the best finish I've seen from a modern Fender for quite some time. I don't know if the sparkle is hiding any defects on here, but I haven't spotted one. I think it's a pretty flawless finish. Along with the simple vintage amber tinted neck, this guitar somehow manages to blur the lines between classic and vintage looking, but still very, very modern. Obviously mine's a relic, this is not, this is a pristine finished guitar, so I'm not gonna award any points here or there for that. The Harley Benton, I did it in a nitro finish. This has got the Fender poly finish, so maybe there's some points there in that. I also didn't choose this colour. If you remember, this guitar just arrived one day, and it probably isn't my first choice of colour from the pictures online anyway, but in person, this is a great looking guitar. All that being said, I am going to give the Fender 5 out of 5 for looks. I think it's an awesome, awesome looking guitar. A great colour that picks up the light really well. And I'm going to give my Harley Benton a 4 out of 5. Yes, from a distance, maybe it's the cooler looking of the two, but once you get up close, this is not a professional finish whatsoever. It still looks good. I'm still incredibly happy with the results. 5 out of 5, 4 out of 5. I'm kind of judging this as 0 is atrocious, 1 is bad, 2 is below average, 3 is good, 4 is great, 5 would be exceptional. Next up, let's talk about tones, and we'll start with the Fender because there's quite a lot going on here with all these different switches and things. The pickups in here are Fender's V-Mod 2 Jazzmaster pickups, although if I understand correctly, they are basically V-Mod 2 Stratocaster pickups, but in Jazzmaster housing. Is what it is. I'm not going to judge them too harshly on that because Jazzmaster pickups share so much DNA with Strat pickups anyway. It's fine, it is what it is. The bridge pickup is also going to be slightly hotter than you might expect, basically to give it more oomph, more output for riffing out on the bridge pickup. That's really welcome in my opinion, but you can actually tap that bridge pickup to get a more vintage, thinner sound by pressing the tone knob. A point of contention I understand on these was the new rhythm circuit that Fender used on this. Essentially, by flicking this switch up here, wires the two pickups in series like a big, thick, modern humbucker. People online generally didn't like this, I understand, because that's not the traditional rhythm circuit, but you know what? I like it a lot. I use that sound a lot, and it is maybe the most characterful sound that this guitar can offer you. Combining all that, the different pickup combinations and the two taps of the bridge pickup, this guitar I think has 7 different tones in it, 7 different pickup combinations. That's pretty impressive. A very, very versatile instrument. While the pickups are perfectly good sounding, to me, they leave a little bit to be desired. They're a little down the middle for me. I understand that's to cater to a lot of different varied guitar players, to cover lots of different genres. For me, I wish that they had a bit more about them. Now the pickups in this guitar cost nearly as much as the guitar itself. I chose them myself. They are Mojo pickups, hand wound here in the UK. The neck pickup is a proper Jazzmaster single coil. Close to a Strat pickup granted, but it has its own distinct character. Thinner, I would say. I chose something different for the bridge, however, which actually makes it more in line with the Fender than you might realise. In the bridge position, I chose a P90 pickup that is just in a Jazzmaster housing, basically to give me more oomph, more output, more character. This offers a lot more mid-range, which is great for me for riffing out using fuzz pedals. And I would say this guitar offers more character than the Fender across the board. And that's because I chose the pickups myself. You know, they're tailored to what I like. It's not as versatile as the Fender, definitely, 100%, but it's definitely a more characterful and exciting sounding guitar. I'm going to give the Harley Benton 4 out of 5 and the Fender 3 out of 5. That's still a good score, but I just wish that we had a little more vintage sounding pickups. Before we get on to the next round, if you like this video and the other stuff that I'm putting out, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Okay, so the third round is going to be general feel and playability of the two guitars. And this is an area where I've actually done a lot of work on both of the guitars. So when it comes to my parts guitar, we've got to bear in mind that the only original parts on this thing are the body, the neck plate, the strap buttons, and the pick guard and the knob plastics. Everything else has changed. So when it came to setting up the guitar, I really was starting from scratch, and I am not good at setting up guitars. I'm not a professional in the slightest. I'm good enough at maintaining guitars and keeping them in a window that I like, but when it comes to setting up a guitar from scratch, that's not my ballpark. All that being said though, I spent a lot of time with it, I learnt a lot from it, and I think I got it in a good place. The neck, I would say, is actually very small and skinny. Not like a shredder flat neck, but more like a vintage C that's been shrunk down. I guess we've got to consider the price point of this guitar when it comes to that, because this is going to be a few people's first guitar who might have smaller hands and they might be getting to know the instrument, so a smaller neck is going to be better for them. For me, I'd like a little more girth, but it is what it is. It's comfortable enough. The fretwork on the Harley Benton isn't as good as the Fender, but for £150 you cannot complain. It's pretty great for the price. Stability and intonation and sort of all that is pretty good on this guitar, but you'd hope so, because I did end up upgrading the bridge, the tremolo, the nut, the tuners, and even the string trees on this thing, so it's pretty stable. The trem isn't a classic Jazzmaster trem, as you can see, but it's a pretty popular alternative. This is the Duesenberg Les Trem 2, I think, and it's great. I can see why these are so popular. It does the Jazzmaster sort of warble thing, but it also does a few other tricks, like the Jeff Beck flicky thing, which I like to do. Probably too much, actually. So the Fender came out of the box set up quite nicely for 9s or 10s, whatever it was. Just a little adjustment to the height of the bridge, and away you go, Bob's your uncle. Intonation was good, but I am not a 9s or a 10s guy. I like a heavier gauge, so the first thing I did was put a set of 11s on this guitar, and I immediately ran into some problems. These American Pro 2 Jazzmasters came with Fender's new bridge design, which is their paranormal tremolo. And it's a really nice piece of engineering. I've had a look inside of here, and it is pretty impressive what they've done here. It kind of expands on the capabilities of a classic Fender Jazzmaster tremolo, and with lighter gauge strings it works a treat. It does not like thicker strings though, whatsoever. I immediately ran into some problems. It was bottoming out, it was causing all sorts of issues. Yeah, I was pulling my hair out at it because I didn't know what was going on. This is my first kind of experience with this sort of tremolo. I didn't know how it was supposed to interact. But apparently this has been a whole saga. It's been a whole thing, and a few of my YouTube colleagues have found a solution. Mike at Pusheen, I think that's how you say his YouTube channel, sorry mate, and 60 Cycle Hum came up with solutions, and I think it basically boiled down to getting a more heavy-duty spring inside of here. I haven't done that yet. Maybe I will at some point. My temporary solution at the moment is just to use 10s on this guitar. I'm just using a lighter gauge of string. Not my preferred gauge, but it works great with 10s. And the tremolo is awesome when it's working as it should. I assume that all of this is because the American Professional 2 line of guitars in general is designed to work for a more modern, professional, session player type of guitarist who's going to be in a lot of different situations, who maybe generally uses a lighter gauge of string. That's what I've heard. I think it's a bit of a weak excuse, but it is what it is. Aside from all that, this is an expensive feeling guitar. This guitar feels premium. One of the more premium modern Fenders that I've played. It's fancy. I feel fancy when I play this guitar. It's also the first proper Jazzmaster guitar that I've ever played, and I never knew how big these things are. This is a substantial body, and you know what? I dig it. It makes the Harley Benton feel like a toy in comparison. The neck is also much closer to what I like. It's a deep C, what they call it, a bit more in the hand. The fretboard feels flat and modern, so I was surprised to read that it's just a kind of perfectly normal 9.5 inch radius. Feels great nonetheless. As I said, this is an expensive premium feeling guitar. Everything adds up to a really well playing result. However, I don't feel right giving this guitar more than a 3 out of 5 because of that tremolo issue. I simply cannot use my preferred gauge of strings on this guitar as it is. It's going to get 3 out of 5. But in the same breath, I don't feel right giving the Harley Benton more than that because it simply doesn't play as well as the Fender. It doesn't feel as nice. So both guitars are going to get 3 out of 5. This would get a 4, maybe even a 5 if the bridge was sorted out. Okay, so that just about covers the categories that I wanted to talk about with these guitars. You know what? These are two cool guitars. Even without talking about results, they look good together, don't they? They're two completely different ends of the price spectrum, but I still love them both equally. So if we add up the scores from the 3 rounds, my Harley Benton scores a 11 out of 15. A pretty good score for a guitar that essentially cost £150 that I stripped and did my own thing with. Not bad whatsoever. The Fender also scored 11 out of 15. Oh dear, I can already see the comment section. I didn't really do that on purpose. You know, I have tailored this a little bit just for a bit of a laugh. This whole comparison is a bit of a laugh. But there you go. Definitive proof that your sub £200 guitar is better than any £2,000+ guitar. Yeah, it's all a bit of a laugh. If you got this far, then you understand where I'm coming from here. I spent 2 months of this year making this guitar and documenting the whole process. There'll be a playlist link up here that you can watch the whole series. And you know what? I've grown attached to it. I have grown attached to this guitar. I know it inside out. I've stripped it down more times than I'd care to admit. And you know what? I also have a newfound respect for the people who work with guitars day in, day out. But it's not as good as this guitar. This guitar is an expensive guitar. It feels great. Everything is put together better than this one. The quality of materials, especially when it was stock, is better than this one. This guitar is also more than the sum of its parts, I guess. You know, it's come together to create a really vibey instrument that is going to stick around for quite a long time. You know what? Both of the guitars are going to stick around for quite some time.